Hey, everybody. This is Heidi St. John. Welcome to the Heidi St. John podcast. I'm really glad you guys are here. And today is going to be a special episode. I'm going to do something I haven't done in a really long time, and that's talk to a real live, brand new homeschool mom. And I met Madeline just a few months ago. I really had a great conversation with her here in the hallway at the Friendly Planet Homeschool Resource Center. And I was like, would you like to come on my show? Because I feel like every homeschool mom in America just needs to be reassured that that you're actually doing pretty good. So Madeline Bache is in the studio with me today, and we're going to be having a great conversation. You guys are going to love it. I want to say thank you to my sponsor, to the Functional Medical Institute, for making this show possible. We love those guys, and I know that you'll love them too. Check them out at homeschoolhealth.com and grab a cup of coffee or tea or whatever your jam is and stick around. I think you're going to be encouraged. Well, thank you guys for tuning in today. This is my speaking season, and so you guys know that I'm traveling all over the country. I'd really love to meet you. I'm going to be in Sturbridge, Massachusetts, April 24th through 26th for the Mass Hope Convention. It's been several years since I've been to Mass Hope, so I'm excited for you guys to come out to that. And also, if you're interested in finding out where I will be, you can just go to HeidiSt.John.com/events. That's where you can find out where I'll be. Coming up after that, I will be in Pigeon Forge. So pretty much every weekend in May, I will be on the road. Pigeon Forge. Then I'm headed to Lee Summit, Missouri to Abundant Life Church, where I'll be bringing the Mother's Day message on Mother's Day. Really looking forward to that. Those are my people. Guys, if I lived anywhere near Kansas City, that would be my church. If you're listening to this and you've never checked out Abundant Life and Pastor Phil Hopper, you guys should check it out. It's fantastic. Really, he's teaching through the Word. And one of my favorite pastors. So check them out, you guys, Abundant Life. After that, I'll be in Branson for Teach Them Diligently, and then scooting on over to Williamstown, Kentucky to the Ark Encounter, where I'll be speaking for the homeschool experience there. That's going to be awesome. Also, here's my just unapologetic plug for Answers in Genesis and the Ark Encounter and the Creation Museum. You know, if you don't want to give your money to like woke Disney, dude, which you shouldn't, give your money to these guys because they are doing awesome stuff. Plan on about 3 days. People ask me sometimes, well, how much time does it take? I think, you know, the Ark Encounter alone, it takes 2 full days, 3 if you have them. So if you want it like a week's vacation, wow, you guys, you could do the Creation Museum and the Ark Encounter. There's all kinds of fantastic things. They do programming all day long. And so that's kind of what I'll be doing there, is just part of the weekly programming. This particular week in May is really designated and dedicated to homeschooling. So check them out, you guys. You can't go wrong. The Ark Encounter, Answers in Genesis. I love everything they do every day of the week and twice on Sunday. After that, I will be in Florida for the largest homeschool convention in the nation, which is FPEA, the Florida Parent Educators Association. I'm opening up that conference with a bang on Thursday night. And so I hope you guys will come out. So all over the place, come out and say hello. All right. Without further ado, I want to introduce my guest today. This is her first time in the studio, and I'm really excited that she's here. Madeline Bache is a mother of 4. And her oldest is 14, right, Madeline?
Yes.
14 down to
14
5.
down to 5.
14 down to 5. So
Yep.
you're doing the thing. Welcome.
Yeah. Thank you. And thank you so much for having me on. It's such an honor to be at this table with you. You have just gone before us and blazed quite the trail. I, for one, my whole family have just benefiting off of all the efforts that you and Jay have put in. So just thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for having me here.
I love it when people say, you know, blazing a trail, because I always think of the fires that are kind of burning maybe on purpose and not on purpose.
Right.
You know, well, we didn't mean to set that on fire, you know, so you have to have a fire extinguisher handy when you're hanging around Trailblazers. So I'm really happy that you're here. And I was really just taken with your story of how you kind of started homeschooling. And I thought, man, you know, and the reason I wanted you to come on and talk about it is because I just think that homeschool moms need to hear that they're not alone, because your story is like so many other people's stories. So let's back up a little bit and talk about your history with your kids, because like me, you never planned on homeschooling, correct?
Absolutely not. That was never in the cards for me. I was not cut from that cloth. And
Right,
I made
me
that
either.
known over and over.
Come on. Yeah.
So-
yeah. And so your kids were they in private school or public school?
Yeah, so my kids, we started out, our first career was in Montessori. So
Okay.
we kind of did the Montessori thing, loved it, until
Yeah.
we kind of started getting out of the kindergarten phase, and they started teaching some things, and I go, oh, okay. This
Montessori is super woke.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really, really woke.
Yep.
Because I love it too, like early on, like hands-on. They're
Love
super
them.
into like the freestyle learning and all of
Yes.
that, which is very homeschoolish, I think.
Yep.
But then you keep going down the Montessori trail
Yes.
and you're in Wokeville.
You are.
You are in Wokeville, USA.
Yeah, and I realized my son was in first grade. When he came back for second grade, his teacher had transitioned over the summer.
Nice.
And he just was supposed to show up and start calling her Elliot. And that was my first time going, oh, okay,
Yeah,
maybe
you're
this
like,
isn't
no.
this isn't for me. And the kids were all very confused.
Yeah. Right.
So-
Which, and actually, what you're saying is part of a greater struggle that I have been trying to sound the alarm bells for, 20 years. And
Yeah.
that is, this is on purpose. Like, these are not people that go into teaching for the love of teaching.
Wow.
They are activists disguised as teachers.
I believe
You
you.
would never,
Yes.
just go to a group of first graders and
Wow.
and quote unquote transition unless your agenda was to normalize
Yes.
this thing, which is really not normal.
Yeah.
And it's demonic, I think, in nature.
Absolutely.
And we're injuring our kids. But continue. I
And then
digress.
shame the parents when we
100%.
have a concern.
Right, then they
or we're
gaslight you.
confused. They gaslight.
Yeah, because
Absolutely.
you're the bad guy.
Yeah.
Because you don't want your kid exposed to this ridiculous ideology, which really is evil at its core.
Yes.
And when you say, oh, I don't want my kid exposed to that, now you're the dummy.
Yeah.
You're the backward one. You're the bigot. You're the homophobe.
Yes.
You're the transphobe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Heidi don't like that.
No, that was a
No.
tough pill to swallow too.
Yeah.
It was enough for me to understand, no, that this isn't right. This doesn't feel right. I knew I was being
What was your
gaslighted.
husband? Was he just like, oh, hey?
Oh, no, he was fired up. He was ready to pull the plug right then and there.
Yeah.
But, I tried to work it out, try to do the mom thing. Our finances are
We're
here.
trying to play
invested.
nice. We're trying to play nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that didn't take long until we had to, switch what we were doing. So we decided
What
to make.
did your son think?
Well, he was the one that was the most concerned because he just couldn't really, behind closed doors, this teacher was, really making him feel bad for not using the right terms. And
Yeah.
so, we didn't stick around long enough.
So crazy.
To
Yeah.
see it all the way through.
So this is Heidi St. John giving the woke Montessori school system 0 out of 10 stars. And so you figured that out. So then what happened?
Yeah. So then we did what we thought was the next best move, save up our money, go to one of the best school districts in Washington. And we did. We bit the bullet, paid the higher
Camas?
taxes. We went to Camas.
That's where I live,
And
girl.
Yep.
Yes.
Still live there. Love Camas.
Love Camas.
But the school just didn't work out for us.
Yeah.
So we did that for a few years.
I mean, sorry to interrupt, but there are lots of kids, and I know several of their parents who are in the Camas school district right now they're gender confused. I mean, like straight up legit. Like they're
Yeah.
transing. I'm sorry, Camas is transing your kids. Like
Yeah.
they are.
Yeah.
Like for real.
It is. I mean, outside of every single classroom, they have their flags. They definitely have their agenda. The first time my son went to middle school there, on the very first day he went to science class, everybody had to tell their pronouns. So when a gal said, "Well, what is that?" and he clarified, if you're a boy, then and he said it, and the science teacher just jumped his throat. He had a horrible experience from day one, and that was
And how old was he?
Yeah, that was his first day of sixth grade.
Sixth grade.
Sixth grade, fresh out of elementary school, first day of
Listen,
middle school.
When I was in sixth grade, I had a crush on a boy named David. I won't say his last name because I don't want to embarrass anyone. But when I was in sixth grade, we were playing on the merry-go-round.
Yeah.
We were kids.
Yes.
We were kids. And part of what they're doing in the schools is they're robbing the kids of a childhood.
It's true.
Like you can't have a childhood because you need to be interested in adult sexual things.
Yeah.
Like things that would normally only be reserved for adults.
Yeah.
Now we're going to, like they did in your Montessori school, now we're going to take away your child's innocence and then gaslight them into thinking they're the dumb one because they don't want to play the game.
Right.
And it makes me so sad.
Yeah.
Like I look back, I mean, I grew up in the 70s, right? And the 80s when I'm always telling everybody here, like the music was cool in the 80s and they ruined it in the 90s. But
Yeah,
that's
back when music was good.
back when music was good. But we had a childhood. we were catching frogs and,
Yep.
getting on our banana bikes and riding down to 7-Eleven, and we
Yep.
didn't come home until the lights went
That's
on.
right. Yep.
Right? You can't do that anymore.
No. It's just, I tell that to my kids all the time. You grew up in a way different time than I ever got.
Absolutely
Yeah.
true. Yeah.
Yeah. When we got out to Camas, and Ace started going to school there, here now I have two experiences that make me feel like a failure. And I'm in this system trying to navigate it, but I knew homeschool was never an option for us. But then all of a sudden I just really started to see these behaviors in my son that I couldn't even recognize him anymore at all. And it was so sad because he's such a sweet kid. And so just like what you said, this system kind of sucked the life out of him. He was no longer allowed to be a kid or even have the space to make mistakes or to explore like a kid would. And so I just saw every single day parts of him shutting down and really kind of just matching that cruel energy that kind of comes from that I've experienced with all of my kids in public school. And that was enough for me to sound the alarm bells to say, okay, I don't care how much we have invested, and then the secret blessing of COVID came, right?
Yes.
And COVID actually showed me, we're at home, we're on laptops, we're doing this thing. I'm like, oh, well,
I'm home with my kids.
maybe I could do this.
Homeschooling.
Yeah, I'm doing it. I said I would never do it, but here I am doing it.
Yeah.
And then I all of a sudden was like, wow, I kind of like this.
Yeah.
And that's what opened up the door for me to start exploring.
It's interesting to me when I meet moms who started homeschooling during COVID, because COVID was such this weird, we could, go down the rabbit hole of COVID all day long, and the gaslighting that happened in COVID,
Yes.
and the illegal mandates and the unconstitutionality of it.
Right.
And I feel like a lot of people, and I put myself in this category, have like PTSD from it, right? The Homeschool Resource Center was absolutely, the Lord protected us, but we got turned into the health authorities all the time.
Wow.
Because we did not want to normalize what was abnormal for children. And that's kind of the point. There's so many things that have happened in our culture in the last 25 years that are really targeted and aimed at injuring children. Wow. And I think about all the kids that graduated in 2020 that in 2021 never got a graduation.
Right.
Kids that their first school experience was masking and social distancing and all the weird antics that the schools put forward. Yep. And in many ways, we can look back on it now and sort of do a post-COVID analysis and sort of an autopsy, I guess, if you will. And you recognize the lessons we learned in COVID were very hard. And the only silver lining that I can think of in it was homeschooling.
Wow.
Was parents seeing, because we started to see this, right? Parents started to see, and I bet you did too, in the online classes. Well, they're pushing ideologies. I never saw what was going on in the classroom. And now I do. Did you kind of have similar experiences?
I did, actually. I was listening into one of my son's calls, and they were reading a book. And the book was about, because at that time, the West Coast was set on fire. We were having riots like crazy.
Yeah. CHOP was going on up in Seattle. They were burning the federal buildings in downtown Portland. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what better way to help the kids cope with it by reading them this BLM, book. And so they took this whole thing that we were already fired up about, and we had already been actively talking to our kids about. And so my son put it on mute and, hey, Mom, and I listened in, and I was like, we ended the call right then and there. My son, who was supposed to be in kindergarten, I just was like, absolutely not. This is not a normal experience. You're not going to go to school, put a mask on. You're not going to get on a laptop. So, that was the silver lining and the blessing of COVID. And I have known lots of moms where this has started the process for them, and that they can do this, and they're interested in homeschooling and seeing the benefits from it. So
yeah, it's amazing. So you decide, at what point do you go, I'm not doing the system at all anymore, and all of our kids are, because that's a big decision. Yeah. You don't just, trip and fall into that. You have to really think on it, pray on it. You have to have some level of conviction.
Yes.
What point in that process of you seeing, oh, hey, this isn't good for my kid? I love that you pointed out that your son was demonstrating characteristics that you did not like, that you knew, this is not my child. I don't know if I told you this when we were talking the last time, but there was a mom, and this was not this building, but the one we had before this one. And it was right in the middle of COVID, and she had enrolled her child in there because they were going to homeschool temporarily. And I put that in air quotes, right? Yep. Until the schools reopened. And so we took their family and signed them up for classes and kind of, exposed them to the homeschool community at large. And about several months into it, she just pulled me aside one day at the center and she started crying. She said, I have not seen my daughter in years. And I finally have my daughter back.
Yes.
That was her. And she's just sobbing. She's like, I'm never putting her back in school.
Yeah.
And she never did.
And that's kind of what led me to our conversation the other day in the hallway is I had to reach back to you. Now we're on year 2 where we've been homeschooling. I feel like we're almost at the end of all the detox.
Well, talk about that.
Yeah.
What do you mean by detox? What did that look like?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I grew up in the public school system. My kids were in the public school system. So naturally that was my grid for school.
Yeah, of course.
And so, but I knew that it wasn't working. My whole life, everybody always told me, no, you can't homeschool because of the social. But that was the very thing that drove me to want to break up. I mean, I was in a long-term relationship with the public school system and we needed to break up. I was done with it. And so when I came to my son, and of course, when I told him I was a horrible mom, and I did it in the middle of his 6th grade year.
Good for you.
I did it. And I did it first kind of as a punishment because I'm like, you're kind of a jerk. And like all of these things are going on, these responsibilities, like, I don't know what's going on. But like, I started off with like, hey, 2 weeks, we're going to take a little break. Because I needed him to get outside of himself to see what was going on. So, when I say detox, we had to, I believed that I had to wake my kids up at 6 a.m., get them on a school bus. They're gone from me for 10 hours.
Oh, people who tell me, oh my word, I so love it you're saying this. Because people who tell me, this was my experience also when my daughter was in the public school. It is work. You cannot tell me like, I don't want to homeschool my kids. That's so much work. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
And like getting your kids up and at them at 6 a.m. and making sure everybody has lunches and they're at the school bus and going to all the PTA meetings.
Yes.
I mean, if you want to be involved in the lives of your kids and your kids are in school.
Yeah.
That is work.
I know. And you know how many times I put my child on a school bus and then cried and had the worst mom guilt because of the fighting that took place to get them motivated to go, or, the struggle, or it was, when I was in public school, what motivated me, bless my mom, if I got up, she would take me to Starbucks in the morning. That was her motivation, just to get me down the aisle and get me graduated, you know?
Yeah.
And so just that motivation.
That was
I
a
had
lot
to
of
find,
money.
It was.
I mean,
back, I'm like,
Starbucks,
wow.
I mean, what is that, like a $15,000 education right there?
I know. Bless my mom. She did what she had to do, right?
That's right.
So when I'm looking at this grid for this public school system and just knowing like, okay, they got to go to school 10 hours. They have to have all these different subjects. That was my grid. And so of course, looking at that system, I don't think that I could do that. And with 4 kids from all the different age ranges. So immediately the system already had me looking at how I was going to be a failure. So that was my perspective. That was my lens, is like, I don't want, it's high stakes. I'm playing high stakes with myself. I'm going to mess up my kids. And that couldn't have been further from the truth.
That's the messaging that we get.
It is.
I think one of the things then, I was talking to my friend Sam Sorbo about this the other day when she was here, that it's weird to me, she graduated from public school. I graduated from a private Christian school in Portland. It's weird to me that we go through 12 years, or 13 if you count kindergarten, in these systems, and we come out and we don't feel equipped to teach a 5-year-old to read.
Right.
Like, what the heck is that? Is so messed up and so wrong. And I remember, Savannah learned to read in the public school, but I taught Sierra and the rest of our children how to read. And I remember sitting down with her in my little book, Teach Your Child to Read in 100 Easy Lessons. And I'm like, and all of a sudden this light bulb comes on. I'm like, oh my gosh. And it wasn't just the light bulb of I'm teaching her to read and how amazing is this. It was, they lied to me.
Oh, wow.
Like, they lied to me. All of these years that I've had Savannah in school, because everybody I told you before, all the homeschoolers I knew back in the 90s for sure, I thought they were just super weird. Like, I looked at the covers of the Teaching Home magazines like, that's not for me. Everybody's wearing like matching dresses with, all of the leftover material that mom got on sale at Joann's, and they're all, holding the stringed instrument. They've got 12 kids in every family. And I was like, I can't do that. That's not for me.
Right.
So I feel like the homeschool movement was sending off these weird vibes, right?
Yeah.
But then the public schools and my private school was telling me, you can't do it. So even if I wanted to homeschool and embrace that, which at that time I did not, the messaging was, well, you can't do that. You don't have a teaching certificate.
Yes.
And when I realized I don't need your dumb teaching certificate, I was kind of mad.
Yeah.
I was like, you guys are lying to people
Yeah.
and making parents feel like the only option they have is to send their child to a total stranger 8
Yes.
hours a day, 5 days a week, 9 months out of every year. And then we stand back in amazement and wonder why we lost our kids.
Yes. That's exactly right.
It's rigged, man.
It is. It is. You know, my husband was homeschooled his whole life. He was an only child, and so he had this really great experience with homeschool. He had a lot of fun with his friends when he went to
That's
his homeschool
interesting
centers.
too, as a singleton.
I know.
Like as an only child.
I know. He talks about that. And
Was he raised around here, or where was
yeah,
he raised?
he was in Vancouver. So he went to River Homelink
got it.
for quite some time for I think the majority of his homeschool, until he got into high school. Then his parents let him go, and then he went into public high school.
Oh, wow.
And that's
a thing.
Yeah, that's where the spiral happened for him.
Yeah,
So
it's amazing.
Thankfully, the Lord got him back. But
Well, and you brought up a good point there too, because I think I hear from so many parents, and I just did a whole thing on this in Spokane not too long ago. Because parents come to me and they say, well, I'll homeschool my children until they get into high school.
Right.
And then I'm going to put them in school. Why? Oh, I know, because you feel like you can't do it.
Yeah.
Or because you think if your kid doesn't have access to all of the, quote unquote high school things, that somehow they're going to miss out. But I always want parents to know these are the best years.
yeah.
Like this is when you start to see fruit in the lives of your kids. This is when you can start to have conversations with them that are going to be trajectory setting for their entire
Wow.
lives.
Yeah.
And why would we give that to a
Yes.
woke institution, again, to take our now young adult away from us?
Absolutely.
5 days a week.
Yep.
Why would we do that? And the more I hear from parents, the more I realize it's because the parent feels inadequate, and they feel like somehow their child's not going to be provided for socially.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, we're selling our kids to the system for 40 pieces of silver.
Wow.
And we're not getting anything back from it that's good.
Wow.
And so I just think it's interesting, the whole high school thing.
Yeah.
And interesting that your husband's parents made that same choice, because
Yes.
it still is the most common reason, I think, the most
Yep.
common reason where parents, would what I consider quitting
Yeah.
and put their kids in. It's because they have all these excuses why they think they can't do it, but it just isn't true.
Yeah. So I get asked that question a lot. Are you planning on homeschooling Ace all the way through high school and all your kids? I'm like, at this point, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, I have no reason not to. My kids are thriving where they're at right now. We have healing in our home and in our family. And I would never trade that in. And plus, he really wants it. He loves it. He loves it here, and he loves his friends.
Does that surprise you?
It surprised me just because of the narrative that I've been told.
Yeah.
So that's the detox that I'm talking about. I'm having to let go of all of the way that I've been learned my whole life.
You have to unlearn it.
You have to unlearn it. And when we talk about what a slime ball the enemy is and how he duplicates things and wants to manipulate things, if we are on our father's potter wheel, if we are on the potter's wheel, then the public school system is the manifestation of what the enemy is trying to do. He's putting our kids in the potter wheel, and the system is shaping them, making them, molding them.
Yeah.
They are turning them into whatever they want. They are so ready to go with whatever way. And so, my husband and I, we have a belief system that it's like, if you tell your kids the truth first, that is their foundation. And how much are slipping through the cracks when we just send our little vulnerable things. And now they're moving the age back further and further, it's kindergarten's not enough. Now it's pre-K, and now it's it's moving it back. And so, and I never made those decisions for private school. I made those decisions thinking that was the best thing for my kids.
Right. And I think that, boy, you're making so many good points, because, and this is why I knew this would be a great conversation. That is so normal.
Yeah.
I mean, when I say to parents, pull your kids out of public school, I'm not saying it to demonize the parent.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying you're such an idiot because you put your kid in public school. I'm saying the school is lying to you.
Yes.
And you're actually capable of more than you think that you're capable
Yes.
of.
Come on.
And so for the mom to say, I was doing the best that I knew how to do at the time, I think that's true of almost every parent.
Yeah.
Like, we're doing the best we can with the information we've been given, and you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And so it's not a slam. I mean, that's not entirely true. I should back up. The only time I start to get upset is when I realize, okay, the parent actually is aware my child's being injured in the school.
Wow.
And they don't want to take their kid out because they don't want to they don't want to make the sacrifices necessary, or they've got other higher priorities. And my exhortation would be, what is possibly of greater priority to you than your children?
Yeah.
Right. You only have a little bit
Absolutely.
of time with them. So you've been thinking, here, I'm doing the very best thing for my kids. And then you start to realize it's not the best thing.
Yeah. And then I realized, actually, I'm not the one failing. It's actually where I have them. It's the system.
Come on.
And that's when I
Yes,
just
that'll
really realized
preach.
that, yeah. And that's when I realized like, oh, that was the blessing of COVID. Like I can do this. And for so long, I was thinking that homeschool was such a sacrifice. I was thinking, okay, what am I going to have to get up? What do I have to sacrifice? What do I have to give up to do this? But really through this process, and I wouldn't have known this unless I'd gone through it, but actually it's given me so much back.
I love that.
It's freed me up
Come
to do
on.
so much more, freed me up to do my businesses,
Yes.
freed me up to do ministry, freed me up to actually have connection with my kids. You know, I spend so much time with quality time with my kids now that when I go out on a date with dad or when I decide to go, you know, I'm going to go do ministry, my kids don't feel like they're flopping in the wind and they're getting, you know, my best overs. They are getting the best of me now. And so there's just been so much healing that's happened in our family because of it, really just as a unit and individually. And so it just keeps getting better. It just keeps getting sweeter.
Yeah.
And I mean, I would never want to, you know, I punched through the other side, thankfully. So I just can't imagine, you know, switching and pivoting. I mean, that's not even on my radar, which I would just like to say it feels so relaxing. I feel like when I first got here, when I first started this journey, I showed up and I laugh around
here at the Homeschool Resource Center.
Yeah, here at the Homeschool Resource Center. I laugh and I wanted to tell you, I feel like we should all the public school moms, we need to take pictures when we first come in. We need mug shots because the transformation that has happened in the last 2 years has been amazing. And it's finally because, you know, I was never in fight or flight. I was too exhausted to fight and way too tired to flee. So I was just kind of surviving. I was in a total, and I got here and I was beat up. I had been beat up, you know. There's so many more public school stories that I could even share to get how I arrived there.
And you do feel like you're failing.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I got here and I was beat up. So by year 2, when I came for registration, it was so funny because actually it was your sister she looked at me, she goes, wow, you look really good. And I was like,
That was
thank
Haley.
you. That was Haley. And she goes, wow, she made a comment. She goes, you look really good. And I hadn't lost weight yet. I hadn't really done anything, you know. It was just the baggage was coming off. I was starting to feel secure and stable. I
breathe again.
I had breathe again. I had stability and I had confidence. And I saw light everywhere that I went, you know, and even just being in this building, I feel like I'm in the presence of prayer. I feel like this building and this whole ministry, I'm in the manifestation of prayers, and I feel so supported in that. And
I love that.
Yeah,
I love that. I think back to, you know, the many, many, many. I mean, Jay and I have probably helped thousands of people, I think, do this over the years, and largely because I was an unlikely candidate to homeschool, and because he never really wanted to do it. He didn't really want me to do it either, because we were all like, oh, those guys are weird. I don't want to do that.
Right.
And so I remember, you know, I'm young enough to remember what that felt like, and what I really wanted, what I wish I would have had. And I told Jay this 20 years ago. I wish there was a place where I could go, where I could meet other homeschool moms, and I could cry if I needed to, and I could say, these are hard. Some of these things are hard, and have someone come around me and go, oh yeah, but you can do it.
Yeah,
you can do it. And I was so lonely. I think that's one of the misnomers.
Yes,
is that homeschooling isolates. It should never isolate. God doesn't design us to live in isolation. We were designed for community.
Yes.
And so I would tell Jay, you know, I wish that we had this place. I mean, this place, the Homeschool Resource Center, is a 20-year dream of mine and Jay's, that moms could come here and get what I call the 4 C's, right? It's curriculum, obviously, because we have a bookstore here.
Yep.
It's classes, right, to augment what you're doing at home. It's coffee, because everybody needs it.
Yes.
And it's Christ.
Yeah.
And I think those things, well, I guess 5, and community.
Community. Yep.
I guess 5 C's.
A lot of community happens around that coffee shop too. Let me just tell you. So thank you.
It's so good. And to me, what I'm trying to do is just normalize moms being with their kids.
Yes.
It's the world that has said that's not normal.
Yes.
It's the world that said, oh, hey, when your kid turns 5, you just need to give them to the state for the next, 15 years. And we'll take it from here.
Yeah.
And it's a lie. And I think what I love about what you're saying, because I hear it in other, roundabout ways and different conversations I have, is that what homeschooling has actually done for you is given you your family back.
My life back, my family back, yes, my time. I mean, I looked at it for so long that it was going to take from my time and all of this, but it's giving it back. It's giving it back. And that's what's so cool about what's happening here. And everybody discovering that is that they are discovering what God had intended for us this whole time, which is, we have these sayings for so long. Oh, it takes a village. And this is the village. This is what it looks like. This is what the village looks like. We're doing life with one another. And, I've been able to have real conversations with moms, breaking down about the struggles we were having on the way here or that day. And, and for someone to say, oh, yes, I've dealt with that. That happened to me. I'm in the same thing, There's just so much real life that happens around this table. It's really amazing.
I love it. And I know that what you're saying is going to set moms free who are listening to this, because they're going to send this conversation to that mom who's on the fence, who's thinking, I just can't do it. I don't know if I'm cut out for it. And I also think it's really important that we acknowledge that every day doesn't have to be perfect. Yes. Right. And that bad days don't make bad moms. And I think it's really important for moms to hear that, because the enemy's going to lie to you. I just answered a question a couple weeks ago on a Mailbox Monday, just a listener question. And I could hear the condemnation that the enemy was speaking over her. Wow. And she was listening to it because she was like, I don't have the patience for this. I don't have, my kids are driving me crazy. Listen, you guys, it's April. If you're getting tired, it's actually okay to put it down and pick it up again in the fall.
Wow, that's great.
You got to be, we were conditioned to believe that school had to happen from September through June or from August to May or whatever it is that you do school. And that's a lie.
It is.
Why we believe this? We were conditioned to think that, it took 5 days a week. I never, in all of the years we've homeschooled our kids, have we ever done a 5-day school week.
Yeah, we don't.
We do 4 days, and it was more than enough. That's why we founded Friday School, because Friday School was the day of the week that we did the homeschool cooperatives, and eventually we planted, well over 100 of them all over the United States, because we wanted people to have Fridays off and come and meet some new friends and maybe do a science experiment or learn how to make, a chia seed smoothie or whatever it is you want to do. There should be life in it.
Yeah.
And what I love about what I am hearing from you, and it's indicative of other stories here, but just people maybe they're not in a position to articulate it like you are, is that when you embrace God's plan for family, what you get back is tenfold what you put in.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I'm pretty vocal about this in my church, but I consider myself in recovery. And people kind of look at me like, I didn't know you had a drug or alcohol problem. Oh no, I'm in recovery for yelling at my kids.
Yeah.
And that was a thing. I was a yeller. I was wound very tight. I was stressed out, especially getting them on the bus, all of the things. And it just that was kind of the culture of our home was, kind of tiptoeing about, mom would yell about something or, and I say I'm in recovery because I'll go really long periods of time without yelling.
Yeah.
And since this healing has taken place, like I haven't been slipping back. And so when you talk about this mom who's like, I'm too stressed out, I'm yelling at my kids, I would just can encourage you just to keep healing and keep leaning into it. I only consider quitting homeschool a few times a year, a few times a month or whatever, I only consider quitting, but it's like, you think about the alternative and, I mean, it's the same. I think about, we've gone through seasons like, okay, we want to quit on things, but then you got to get through the other side. You got to punch through the other side because that's where the goodness is,
Yes.
So I really resonate with that mom. But what this has done coming together, we school 3 days a week. I tell my kids it's actually 4 days a week, but I'm trying to teach them to be self-motivators. And so I say, hey, we're doing it in 4 days, but if you buckle down in these 3 days instead of, doing these other things and you get your work done, then you only have 3 days. And
that's brilliant.
My kids have taken me up on that.
That's kind of like the equivalent of taking them to Starbucks.
It is.
You're going to get a day off.
Yeah, you're going to get a day off. So we school 3 days a week, but to be fair, on that fourth day, we live on a farm, we garden, we have animals.
That's school.
We do tons of, we do ministry, we do outreach. There's tons of other school life things that we do that are really, we talk about business all the time. Everything's a business idea in our house.
Yeah,
and so
ours too, yeah.
Just organically, school and family just happens that way. And of course, you're building in just your closeness. And then I think a lot of what us moms really need is we just need a good healing break just to let ourselves heal, and if you just need to school a few days a week for the first few years, like I did, and that worked really well for us. But again, it's that detox. It's getting rid of all of what the world has told us that we needed to do, and really just navigating to what works really well for your family.
I love that. And it's an acknowledgement that we all came out of a similar system. Right. And it is the system that has told us this is what education looks like. The founding fathers would have not recognized our school system today. Wow. Most of the people that wrote these amazing literary works, like you consider the Federalist Papers, James Madison, who crafted the Declaration of Independence, these people who wrote the Constitution, they were free thinkers and they were largely educated at home.
Yeah.
And it would have been inconceivable to them to imagine education without God. I mean, that would have been a complete oxymoron.
Yes.
Like to the founding, we used to have before the implication or the institution of the public schools in America, we had one of the most devoutly Christian nations on the face of the earth. And since the time that we have been putting the public schools into basically every facet of American life, we have seen that slowly fade over the years. And now the schools have become completely hijacked. I mean, they are subservient to the God of this age. They're actually a tool, I believe, for the enemy, for evil, to promote things like Marxism and communism and all of the isms into the culture. And you see it in the kids, right? You see this in kids who go onto college campuses and they can't argue for their point of view. They just have to yell at you and call you a Nazi, right? Or they yell at you. I love it when the true fascists call the not fascists a fascist. Yeah. And I think to myself, methinks you do not understand the term fascist. I think you don't get it. But it goes back to this is what we knew. And I love that God is setting, and I don't think we're near done with this mass exodus from the schools. I love that God is setting his people first. Because we'd be remiss to believe that, or to say that homeschooling, or to not say rather, that homeschooling is just Christians. It's not. I mean, homeschooling now, because it is so mainstream, has, people of every creed in it, certainly. But I look at Christianity in particular as it relates to the homeschool movement, and I see God doing a revival movement.
Yeah.
I think that God's doing something so special in this country, because they're mostly Christians who started the homeschool movement for sure. But they're kind of getting back to the roots that the founding fathers gave us. Yeah. And the founding fathers were entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. They were, most of them loved the Lord. I mean, a lot of them were deists, but a lot of them were Christians who loved the Lord. Yeah. And they would just be amazed and appalled at the state of our country today. Right. And I think largely you can trace it back to the schools. Right. Because this is where we're getting all this. This is where I got it. Yeah. It's where you got it. It's where your son was getting it. Yes. And what you're doing, Madeline, I really believe this is true, is you are breaking generational chains.
Come on, I am. Yes, thank you.
And you make that choice. Like I made the choice first in my family, and people made fun of us. We're like, we're going to hate that. And it takes will to do it. It takes moxie. It takes grit. And I love that God is doing it, because you guys are going to look back, a generation from now. Yeah. And by the grace of God, your grandkids are going to be homeschooled. Yes. My grandkids are being homeschooled. I'm going to have 8 here pretty quick.
That's amazing.
8.
That's amazing. And counting.
I know, right? It's raining grandbabies now in our family, which is it's phenomenal. Yeah. But by the grace of God, the next generation is going to see the lie of the public education system, and they'll just keep their kids from it and never put their kids in. Right.
Well, you bring up a good point. You remind me of when Jesus, and I believe it's earlier in Matthew or Mark. I wish I had the address with me, but Jesus, these kids are being brought to Jesus, and the disciples and the adults are basically like kind of nope, and shoving him. Yeah. And you see Jesus. He rebukes them. And I kind of joke around and say, this is as close as we see Jesus cussing somebody out, because he doesn't necessarily curse them, but he's like, I will dry up your fields, and I will, and he goes to town, basically going to town on them, like, don't you even think about this? Like, let them come to me, and it's so important, because that's the responsibility as a parent that we have. That's actually one of the reasons that woke me up to go, oh, this is important enough to God. When I used that example with the potter wheel and I saw that scripture, it was a big light bulb moment to me. But, we just need us women and us moms, we want to do a great job.
Yes.
And so it comes on, and that's why I wanted to thank you, is because, we are really relying on the giants who came before us to give us the confidence and the empowering to say, if you can do it, I can. And I was never one of those people. Matter of fact, I remember changing diapers with my second kid going, oh, really, God, this is it. This is all I have. Like, this is my life. Now I'm just changing diapers.
Yeah.
And like kind of a little upset about it. And like, I'm made to build businesses and to do this and do that. And the Lord he was so kind, but he really humbled me and just really walked me through what a precious and powerful position it is to be a mom and to shape them and mold them, you know. And when I'm taking seriously, I mean, I have a really amazing husband, and he was built that way. He was poured into. I have an opportunity to shape future families, to face. I have 3 boys and a girl, so I have an opportunity to really contribute to helping, build and minister to a man that's going to be a man of God, and and he's going to build companies and he's going to build ministries, and so it's a really valuable and powerful position. And the enemy has lied to us moms, thinking that, we are just minimal and we're, that feminism is out.
Well, feminism is a lie. I mean, feminism has done more to hurt women, I think, than almost any lie that has been perpetuated in the culture in the last 60 years.
Wow.
Feminism has hurt women. I'm all for women's suffrage. And obviously, we're all for women, having equal pay for equal work. Right. That's just a meritocracy, which we've also moved away from, thank you, DEI and, President-ish Joe Biden and all these weirdos that we've been under the leadership of for the last decade or so. But if you peel back the layers of feminism, you hear a lie. Did God really say? Ooh. I mean, all the way back, that thing goes back to the garden.
Yeah.
Did God really say that the husband is the head of the home?
Wow.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Did God really say that the fruit of the womb is a reward? Yeah, he did. And the lie of feminism is that the fruit of the womb is not a reward. It's a curse and rather than a blessing.
Yeah.
But God said children are a blessing.
Yes.
Right. And so it really does go back to, if you peel back the layers of feminism, it is lie after insidious lie after lie after lie. And it has left women robbed of the best years of their lives. Yeah. In many cases, robbed of their fertility. I mean, thank you, Gloria Steinem, who basically told women, why would you have children? What a dumb, stupid thing to do. And I am, I have a career that I love and I'm doing things that I really enjoy. I wouldn't trade what I'm doing now for the years I spent raising my 7 children for anything in the world. And it is a lie I love to tell women this. I mean, not everybody is built the same way. I tend to live my life 150 million miles an hour, and I always have. Not everyone is built to multitask in the way that I am, right? But there were many, many, many years that I laid down any idea of a career outside of our family, and I just focused on our family. And guess what? I still have a lot of years left to do that. And women have been told to believe that if you lay down whatever my aspiration is right now, because I realize, okay, I have to focus on the 7-year-old who really needs mama, right? For whatever reason, that particular kid, he needs me from sun up to sundown. Yeah. And it didn't leave me any time for several years to do other things. And yet the Lord has given me opportunity to do it now.
Yes.
And it is just a lie that if you don't sacrifice your children on the altar of your career, that somehow you're never going to have a career, or somehow you won't always be changing diapers. You're not always going to be, and you're going to look back and go, shoot, that went by fast.
It went by fast and I miss it.
Yes. Yeah. I don't miss all of it, to be fair. There are things I don't miss. But I those years were precious.
Yeah.
And I love that God's given you a vision for motherhood, because the lie of feminism would strip that from you.
Yes.
And you wouldn't be able to. That's what Sam Sorbo. I mean, those guys were in Hollywood, right? I mean, their whole world was Hollywood and movies and making all kinds of money through modeling and all that stuff.
Right.
And Sam would sit here and say she'd give it up in a New York minute, and in fact, she did, to be able to pour into her children who are now grown and walking with the Lord. That's why we're doing what we're doing. And so if she wants to now, she can turn her attention. She can go back into almost any career she wants to, because God's gifted her and talented. And she's gifted and talented in so many things, but she didn't didn't give up the best thing in pursuit of a good thing.
That's right. Yeah. Family's first ministry. And I really believe that. And I said it for a long time and I wasn't walking that out. And now I understand it more than ever. And, our family is our first ministry because of the way that it duplicates and it multiplies, which was what we were asked to do, is to be fruitful and multiply. So it is such precious, holy ground, really. It's holy ground. It's so rewarding.
Yes.
It is so rewarding.
There's joy in it.
There's so much joy in it. I mean, I to be honest with you, when I first started my homeschool, I said, okay, well, I'm going to take my 5-year-old and he's going to go to school because I don't want to teach him reading and writing.
I hear it all the time. I hear that all the time.
But then I took him there. I ended up teaching how to read and write. And that's been the funnest part, the most rewarding part. So what if the thing that we're most afraid of is actually the thing that we're going to thrive at the most? Because it's a part of our design. Right? Like we're talking about our design of how God created us, empowered us. We're not like thrown off guard, like, oh my goodness, in 2,000 years, everybody's going to be homeschooling. And I didn't build the mom to homeschool. He put a part of our design. And so everything you're saying is so just design related. And that's why my kids are thriving. That's why I'm experiencing healing. That's why we're having connection. That's why I've been able to give up yelling and, being in survival mode, and it does create a level of stability in the home. Sometimes it gets ugly before it gets better.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean,
and you can still have bad days. I mean, because we live in this broken, fallen world, right? And so we're always going to be experiencing hills and valleys.
Yeah.
And I think the lie is that if you're in a valley for whatever reason, maybe it's a health crisis or a financial crisis or whatever, that somehow you're in a valley. And so therefore now you need to sacrifice your kids to the public school system in order to get out of that valley or survive in the valley.
Yeah.
And God's like, no, I'm going to meet you in the valley and keep your kids with you.
Yeah.
And your kids are going to watch as you walk through this valley.
Yeah.
Jay and I have, in all the years we've homeschooled, we've lost a baby. At one time, I had a really difficult labor and delivery, I think with my 4th child. And so this was after the miscarriage. We get pregnant again. We have Spencer, and his birth was just traumatic for a whole bunch of different reasons. I almost bled to death.
Wow.
And I came home, and because I had turned down a blood transfusion, which in hindsight I wouldn't have done, I turned it down because we had a friend who got a blood transfusion in the 80s after a motorcycle accident, and it was tainted with the AIDS virus. This is before they knew. Oh my
goodness.
This is before they knew that he got in the accident in San Francisco. They didn't realize that all these people who were giving blood had the AIDS virus. So my friend gets this blood transfusion and subsequently years later dies from AIDS. Yeah. And so in my mind, I've had this traumatic delivery and they're telling me you need, however much blood, do you want a blood transfusion? And I turned it down. And so that meant that I spent 4 months really just trying to build up my red blood cells again. I mean, they had to put my bed in the living room. It was just crazy. I should have taken the blood transfusion, but hindsight is 2020. It doesn't matter now. But in that year, I was relatively new at homeschooling, probably 3 years or 4 years into it, maybe 3. And I had just discovered this thing called notebooking, from Charlotte Mason. And I loved this method of schooling because it was just so life-giving to our family. So I'm like, we're going to start notebooking. Now I am buying into this homeschool thing because I am loving it. Then I have in March of 2001, this just hardcore delivery, this labor and delivery. And I'm just knocked on my rear end. And I can't do the things I thought I was going to do. Wow. And March goes by and April goes by and May goes by. And I'm like, the only thing that I can do is sit on my bed really and read to my kids. And so Jay went to the library. This is before the libraries were super woke. And he came home with, baskets, wagons full of books. And I would read to the kids. And at the end of that year, our 2 oldest, Savannah and Sierra, went in for standardized testing like they do here in Washington State. Yeah. And I just thought, that's it. I'm going to get arrested. Like my kids are going to flunk their standardized tests. And I needed this. I look back at it now. I'm like, thank you, Lord, for that valley that we walked through, because the kids took that test that year. And Madeline, I'm telling you what, I got their tests back, and those girls tested not 1, not 2, but 3 years ahead of where they were supposed to be. And I just felt like it was the Lord saying, give this to me. You do what you can do, and I will finish the job. Come on. God will finish it. Yes. And I think moms need to hear that, because I think sometimes we take all this responsibility and we think, I have to do it perfectly. I have to teach my child, every little bit of the syntax of the English language, or somehow they're not going to thrive in college. Not true. Yeah. I think homeschooling is such a beautiful example of the loaves and fishes story for modern moms.
Wow.
Because what we give to the Lord, we give him those 3 loaves and those 5 fishes. We give them to the Lord, and he multiplies
Yes.
it. And he multiplied it that year. And when I got those test scores back, I was sitting on my couch and I got the envelope, in the mail, and I was just like, oh boy, I'm, ripping
Dreading
open, and
opening
I'm
it.
dreading opening this thing. And I just sat there and cried. And when Jay came home from work, I was like, I didn't understand how much God was in homeschooling until just now.
Wow.
Because all I had to give the Lord for those 4 or 5 months was, I'm going to read to my kids. We read missionary stories. We looked at things on the map. I really didn't do much, concrete like workbook stuff. I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
But the temptation was to put them in school.
Yeah.
Right? The temptation was to go, I'm failing my kids, and so now I need to put them in school. And what the Lord showed me was, no, if you'll just keep them home and you'll protect their hearts and their minds,
Yes.
and give what you can give, I'll multiply, and it'll be enough.
Yeah.
And I think parents need to hear that.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing that says that in the next year, either one of us aren't going to be walking in a deep valley, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And the answer to the deep valley is not sacrificing my kids to a broken education system that has set itself against God, so that we can make it through this valley.
Yeah.
The Lord will take care of it.
I appreciate you saying that even right now, because that thought is still a temptation that tries to come to me and tries to eat at me and tell me like, hey, if you go back, and you just kind of free them up, then you can do these things. Though that temptation still comes. And that's a thought that I have to take captive to go, no. And I have to remind myself of all of this beauty that we're getting here. And so I just appreciate you saying that, because I feel like that's a thought that still tries to come and eat its way at me and
you can
lie to
see
me.
why.
Yeah.
You can see why, because the most beautiful thing that is coming out of your marriage to that wonderful man of yours is these amazing children.
Yeah.
That is the gift. That's where God says, this is the fruit of the womb is a reward. It's a blessing. And wouldn't it be just like the enemy to attack the blessing?
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
And he's going to attack it by attacking you, because he knows if he can this is why I always keep this in front of me. I don't know if you've ever heard me teach on this. Everybody on my podcast is going, here she goes.
I love it.
But years ago, when I was teaching at a convention in Oregon, it's probably 15 or 16 years ago now, I was teaching through Psalm 127, and this is how I saw it. Like, your children have been given to you like arrows in the hands of their warrior parents. And so in my mind, I see, this husband and a wife out on the battlefield, and this is what we're doing.
Wow.
And the next year, at the same conference, this kid comes back to me. Here, you should see this is really cool. The next year, this kid comes back to me, and he goes, Mrs. St. John, thank you so much for teaching. I have something for you. And I thought maybe he'd written me a thank you note. Sometimes that happens on the road. And he hands me this sculpture.
Wow.
And this isn't the original. It's a replica. I have the original in the studio on the other side of this wall. But he said that it made such an impression on him that when he gets married someday, he and his wife are going to be out on the battlefield.
Wow.
And his job was to stand in front of his wife with that shield of faith up and take those arrows so she didn't have to.
Yes.
Take those arrows so they didn't go into his children. And I'm not sitting behind my husband, knitting a baby blanket.
Yeah.
Like, I'm out on the battlefield, right? I got in the original sculpture, because we have 7 children, there were six arrows in the quiver and 1 in the bow.
Yeah.
And on the original sculpture, you can see here, it says Psalm 127. On the original, it has our family name. It has St. John on it. But I want parents to understand and to recognize how precious it is that we have this opportunity to team up together to get off the bench and onto the battlefield for the sake of our children and ultimately for the glory of the Lord.
Yeah.
Because that's what God is doing.
Yes.
God is having us launch our children out into this world as weapons in spiritual warfare. Your children are arrows.
Yes.
Right? God doesn't say your children are, boomerangs, although they do come back. They will come back. But I just think, boy, I love this illustration. And that is what God is doing through you and your husband as you're launching these children. That's why homeschooling is so important. Jesus said to the Pharisees in Luke chapter 6, verse 40, he said, when a student is fully trained, he'll be like his teacher.
Wow.
So then what are we like as parents?
Wow.
Our kids apparently going to be an awful lot like we are. Like that whole saying, like the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. It's a biblical principle.
Yeah.
Right? Your children are going to be like their parents. And so what you guys are doing in taking what, in the culture today we would consider the road less traveled, God's going to show up for you in ways that you can't possibly imagine. And it won't just benefit you. According to Psalm 78, it's going to benefit your grandchildren. and it'll benefit the children of your grandchildren.
Wow.
And a generation of those children yet to be born. So 4 generations are impacted by your decision.
Wow.
To keep your children home. And to me, you can't put a price on that. I mean, I'd live on a single income in a little house with a used car and all our clothes from the Goodwill. Oh, we did that.
Yeah.
For like 15
I'm
years.
like, that sounds familiar.
25 years we did that. And God blessed it.
Yeah.
Right? It's just keeping your eye on the ball.
Yeah. And how much richer are you in your family and the things that God has rewarded you with?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Jay's always saying to me, in fact, he said it last night, our family, in every way that actually matters, we're rich. It has nothing to do with money.
That's beautiful.
It just has nothing to do with money. The world has, it's not that money is bad, but I think we have this idea that a successful family looks like this. And it's actually not true. In God's economy, a successful family are the parents that are teaching their children to walk in the nurture and admonition of the Lord.
Yes.
And we should want what God wants. And outside of that, boy, to me, just the sky is the limit.
Yeah.
Because this is the Bible again. Like, I have no greater joy than to know that my kids are walking in the truth.
Yes.
And we trade it all, right? We would trade it all for that.
Yeah.
And so the enemy's going to rail against you.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
He's going to try to make you think you're failing.
Yeah.
He's going to try to make you think your kids are dumber than everybody else's kids. He's going to try to make you think you're everybody else's house is cleaner and everybody else's husband is more romantic and everybody else is a better homeschool mom than you are. And it simply isn't true because God gave you the kids that he had just for you in this generation. And you have become, I think, part of what I am deeming the courageous generation of mothers who looked at a situation that was arguably worse than when I took my kids out.
Wow. Yeah.
And have said no. In the face of whatever comes our way, we're going to do something different. And I can't wait because I think 10 years from now, you're going to have stories to tell. I mean, you could be a grandmother, right?
Yeah, right.
And how old's your son? 14?
Yeah, 14, yeah.
Girlfriend. I mean, you likely will be a grandmother.
Yeah, I will.
10 years from now. And it comes at you fast.
Yeah.
You're raising children you're raising parents for your grandchildren right now.
Wow.
That's what you're doing, girl.
That is when you zoom out and you think of it that way, I mean, that's what's so precious. I mean, that empowers me. That, that really encourages me to really okay, I'm getting in the fight. I can, and this illustration is so perfect because this is what we're going after. And this is a biblical reference right here. I just love the visual that it brings. And it just makes me want to dig my heels in and face the giants, and I just feel very strong in that. I feel confident just because I've already seen the blessing and the reward. And so.
And you're just 2 years in.
I'm only 2 years in.
You're just 2 years in.
I know. And that's when you're talking about year 3, 4, I'm like, oh man, the good stuff is still coming.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the stories, I just think, it amplifies when we choose to do things God's way. We see things differently. You've got a kingdom perspective now with education.
Yeah.
And as it turns out, that's the only perspective that we can have if we're going to see our children through to adulthood, we have to see education from a kingdom perspective. And it's generational in nature.
Yeah.
It just is. It's really fun for me to watch. My sister Haley, of course, Haley.
Yes.
And she's homeschooling. And you should ask her sometime about what it's like to have Heidi St. John for your big sister. She was just like, oh, I am not doing that. I will not be homeschooling because my sister, she wasn't going to do it. And to see her take a leadership role here and to see her family thrive.
Yeah.
And it won't be long and Addison's going to graduate from high school.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, wow.
She was one of the reasons. She said something to me that cracked something open for me. She's so wise. She came to me one time because, there's cameras all around here. And my son was...
That's true.
He was walking somewhere he wasn't supposed to be in the gym floor. I know. And we'd just gotten the gym floor done. And so I got a phone call and said, hey, Ace was there. And, of course, I wasn't there. And so anyway, I ended up making
run a tight ship around here.
You do. We do. I love it though.
You're right. Tight ship.
I do. So Haley had came to me and I said, I made a comment about, do you want a teenager? Like, I've heard every single mom known a man say that.
Yep.
And she said to me, she goes, oh, this is my favorite age. Oh, I love them. And I remember she said it and it rubbed me.
Come on.
Not the wrong way, but it just rubbed me enough that I was like, what do you know that I don't? So then, fast forward, he's being an angel again. My son's a really good kid, actually. He's not something happened where, I said, oh, okay. I made the comment again. And I think it was this year. It was the second time I made it. And she met it with me again. And I leaned into it and I was like, what do you know that I don't? And it took me on this journey. And now I'm like seeing what she's seeing. I'm like, actually, so if you, I don't know if you need to hear this, but teenagers are amazing.
Yes.
They are so
That's
fun,
why I said
so
don't
awesome.
put them in public school.
Right. And she just opened up my eyes to it. Like, no, actually, they're amazing and they're precious. And I'm completely subscribed to that now. And I'm seeing, we're getting to the good fruit of that.
Yes, you are. And you just went to the homeschool formal that we had here, right? The big dance that we do. We do one in the winter and one in the spring. What was your experience like with that?
Yeah. So my son wasn't at that one because he's not in high school yet. And so I made it a point to, volunteer ahead of time.
Good
because,
girl.
when it comes up next time, it's, what are you talking about? I've been volunteering since before you came. Thought ahead.
Dude,
but
now see.
It's so clever. But
now someone's cooking with gas. That's parenting gas right there.
That's parenting gas.
Yes, I love
there
it.
was about 100 kids at this dance.
It's
it was
a big
big
event.
and it was so well done. It was so beautiful how they set it up. But it was funny because they played a game. And one of the parents asked me, hey, we need you to do this French accent for this game. And I agreed to it, being all playful. And I walk into the 100 kids with the microphone and instantly my reaction was, what was I thinking? Like, kids at this age will roast you. That's my experience from, ACEs. That's the trauma that I experienced in the middle school. And so I'm like, they will roast me. So I get done. These kids are so sweet. They came up to me afterwards. You did such a good job. Your French accent. And I think it was both French and Spanish. It wasn't very good. They were so sweet about it. And so, and that's the culture. I'm like, I love that my kids are a part of this culture.
Yeah.
That contributing to that. My 6-year-old, he's in intermediate chess, playing chess with the high schoolers. My middle schoolers doing high school math. I mean, you wouldn't get that if they stayed in their own bubble, in their own lane, the variety that you get.
Yeah, it's so amazing. And just to see families like yours, Jay and I, every time we come here, we still can't believe it. I mean, I felt that way this morning when I turned in here, We come in here and I was watching Peter out there and they're building, they're working on making that gate finally remote controlled so we can open it with our phones and stuff.
Awesome.
And so everything around here, it moves slow, but it's moving. Like it's a forward motion. And I just think, boy, we feel so blessed to be able to watch. And a large part of the reason is to see families like yours be able to really grab a hold of the beautiful thing that family life that God actually intends for it to be, because it's beautiful. And I was telling you this before we started recording, and I guess this is a good way to maybe wrap up the show today. I said, I didn't think you were around when we first got the building. And I know you weren't around for the last building, but when we saw this one, it was raining and cold and winter and everything. And, they let us in during COVID, right? So everybody's wearing a mask. It was like this weird, like real estate apocalypse, right? Everybody's wearing a mask. And I walk in the front door of this building and, the lights are kind of off in the building and the owner takes us and I see the auditorium and I look at my husband. I'm like, wow, this is the place. This is the place. And we walk, and the more we walk around the building, we're like, oh my word, this is amazing. And then it finally comes down to it, and later on in negotiation, we find out he wants $16.5 million for the building. We had $30,000 in the bank. We definitely not have 16.4 million.
Wow.
And God in his mercy, and I want people to understand this story, and I've told it before, but I just think it's worth retelling. Because everything that you're doing with your kids right now, God's writing the story. Yeah. God wants the glory for it. He doesn't want you to get to the end of your homeschool years and talk about the Homeschool Resource Center. I mean, it's great if you talk about it in good terms. That's not the thing, right? He wants you to get to the end of your homeschool journey, fall flat on your face, lift your hands to the heavens and say, thank you, Jesus, that was just you. Like, I couldn't have done it without you. And that's how I feel about this place. Like, we started bringing groups of parents to this property. We try to do it on the weekends or like after work because there weren't people in the building. And we marched around this building and we just started claiming the building in the name of Jesus.
Yes.
I watched parents anoint doorposts with oil and touch every window pane on the first floor of this building has been touched by somebody who prayed over it, right? God is powerful. And I think sometimes we forget. Like we forget, I mean, it was the Lord who helped us close on this building. with cash. So now we don't have a mortgage because we couldn't do what we're doing here with a big fat mortgage.
Right.
The taxes are enough, okay, because the horrible city of Vancouver. And it's just amazing to me. It's just a God story. And what God's doing in your family is a God story. Yeah. And what he did here at the Homeschool Resource Center and what he's going to continue to do, it's all about him because at the end of the day, God wants the glory.
Yeah.
And we were commanded all throughout Scripture. I mean, I'm reading through the Bible again this year, and we were commanded to pass these things on to our children. It's a command. It wasn't a suggestion. And it's very hard to do it when your kids are being assaulted by a leftist, liberal, godless agenda 5 days a week, 9 months a year, day in and day out, 8 hours a day. And what you've done, Madeline, in bringing your kids home is you brought your family freedom to the next generation. And it's freedom to just walk with the Lord, to have the opportunity to be trained in righteousness on a battlefield. It's exciting.
Wow.
It's exciting.
Yeah. And that's the theme that I hear walking around here all the time. As parents, we talk amongst one another. We feel so blessed driving here every day. I feel like, wow, this building, when I get to go to the ballet or I get to see a show or we get to play in the gym. I mean, it's still unfolding consistently with the relationships that we're making. And it's so cool because people are walking around and you see people taking ownership. They're cleaning up after themselves and everything because we feel so blessed to be here. I cannot believe this is in my back door.
It's amazing.
In my front, my front door. This is beautiful here and I love it.
I'm so glad.
Thank you for everything.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you for coming on the show today.
Absolutely.
So
Thank
much
you.
fun. Who knew the little conversation in the hallway would land you on the show?
I know.
And,
Tell me about it.
I think this show is going to bless a lot of people because your stories of what God's done in your family and what he's going to continue to do, the little light bulb moments that he's shown you, the fact that you saw that you were losing your son to this system is going to resonate. It's going to resonate. So thank you for being willing to come on and share it.
Thank you.
It.
Thank you.
We'll do it again.
All right. God
we'll
bless
do it
you.
again.
Appreciate you.
So many good things coming up. You guys, thank you for listening today. I hope this has been an encouragement to you and a blessing as you raise your children on a battlefield. This is your life, you guys. Show up for it. It's your kids' lives, and you only get one shot at shepherding them. We want to shepherd our children and train them in righteousness. As I said before, you guys, I want you to go and visit our sponsor today. Our sponsor is the Functional Medical Institute out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. I love these guys. You'll love them too. Check them out at homeschoolhealth.com. You guys love your people well. Love them well. And I know God's got good things in store for you. Thank you guys for listening, for leaving reviews for the show. Please drop us a 5-star review over at iTunes and tell your friends about this show. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you also for visiting our sponsors today. These are the people that help us keep the show on the air. And so it matters to us that you guys check out what they're doing as well. We love you guys. Thanks for listening. I'll see you back here again at the intersection of faith and culture.